Mm.
And I got to tell you, Raddy, it was tough, and kind of be careful what you wish for because it was really long hours. It was a lot of weekends. And while the work, was fulfilling in the sense that you're a part of putting together something to help, the company sell and get business, it was very much like you were sort of had the brunt of the work of putting together these packages. So you often had to rely on so many different entities and people to make it happen.
Welcome to Career Cheat Code. In this podcast, you'll hear how everyday people impact the world through their careers. Learn about their journey, career hacks, and obstacles along the way. Whether you're already having the impact you want or are searching for it, this is the podcast for you. All right. So Janice, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Raddy. I'm very happy to be here with you.
I appreciate it. I know we've been talking about this for quite some time, and I'm excited to start the show and really dive right in, so let's tell the world what it is you do for a living.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. So my name is Janice Haughton. I'm the director of the Community and Citizenship Department at Turner Construction Company. And I have the pleasure of working with our project teams, our management, and our various departments across New York in developing impactful community engagement programs, community outreach initiatives, and of course, working closely with minority, women, local, service disabled, LGBTQ businesses, and helping them to identify and access contracting opportunities to work with Turner Construction. So I have been with Turner now. I'm what you call a returner. In all, I've been with Turner for about 15 years. I started there in about, 2005, left for a little while and have come back and now have the honor of managing this wonderful department with a great group of colleagues and volunteers across New York.
What does that mean? Is that how often are you on a construction site? How often are you on the actual field versus not, right? And I think about it from the perspective of when I was young, I would see people out there working on construction, but I didn't really have a good sense of what it took to fully pull together a construction plan, manage a project, and then all the things that happen around the project, like your role. So we'd love to understand kind of how that looks like on a day-to-day for you.
Yeah. So what's so great about my job, Raddy, is that I'm never doing the same thing every day. And I get to meet with so many people, both at Turner and in our external communities, as well as local organizations that are, developing economic development programs and community service initiatives for those in our communities here in New York. So a typical day for me never looks the same. I could be meeting with a local organization to talk about how Turner can partner with them to support their initiatives and their goals. I could be at a school. We work with kids from as young as 5 years old right up through college. And with that, I have my project teams coming out, talking to young folks of diverse backgrounds about the construction industry and how they can learn about the wonderful and lucrative careers that there are both in the trades and on the engineering and professional side. Or I could be volunteering, out in our communities, whether it's cleaning a park or servicing a food pantry, or again, working with local families and kids. I could be outside doing that one day, or I could be in the field with our project teams, working closely with procurement and our teams to understand and identify those opportunities for construction contracts with MWBs. So that is another set of outreach, right? I could be working with our city and state agencies, attending events with our clients to engage with those contractors and share information about how they access those opportunities.
Yeah, which makes sense. And I think, it's been certainly an area of interest for me, recognizing that, construction companies and construction projects are really impactful to communities, right? So seeing more active, large organizations wanting to be immersed in the community, trying to, pull together and work in cohort with community rather than just, having a project and then going about their day, really working with community. Like, okay, how do we get apprenticeship programs? How do we get some of the local firms to maybe participate in some of these projects, right? So, certainly appreciate your work. And that's really, we'll talk about it later, but that's really how I met you, right? Through that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Janice, is this what you always wanted to do for a living?
No, I'll be quite honest. I did not, which is why it's such a pleasure to talk to you today and your audience, because I mean, my parents, came to this country from Jamaica, in the 60s, and my dad and his brothers, very little education, but had skills with their hands. So they all worked in construction. So I knew about the industry. It's quite frankly in my blood, but I had no idea, one, that there were opportunities for women and people that look like me, and also that this was a job. I always figured a construction company builds what they build. They make some noise, it might be a little dirty. You might be inconvenienced for a while, but hopefully, with what they are erecting, it betters, an environment or community, but had no idea that a job like this existed. I thought I wanted to be a pediatrician until I realized how much schooling was involved in the medical career. And actually, I developed a fear of seeing, that sort of injury to folks, whether it be emotionally or physically. I just didn't have the stomach for it. So yeah, I didn't know that I'd end up here, but I always knew, Radhy, that I wanted to help people. I didn't know how, but I knew that I wanted to sort of be a conduit to help people, better themselves, better their career, and, ultimately better their lifestyle and their family through some kind of opportunity that I could help create for them.
Okay, so your parents came from Jamaica. Where did you end up growing up, and what age were you when you wanted to be a pediatrician?
So I grew up in the Bronx, South Bronx, proud to be from that beautiful place. And I think I was probably maybe going into high school. I went to DeWitt Clinton High School, and then had the honor of being accepted into kind of like super pre-med honors program. So I started taking a lot of those heavy biology classes, and I realized I just didn't, I didn't have the head for it. And I didn't love it. It was hard. School was hard, but I didn't develop a love for it that I had seen other students developing. And I was starting to question if this is really what I wanted to do. So I started focusing in college on human services, because I thought, maybe I'd go into the nonprofit world. Maybe I'd do, some goodwill work. And through that opportunity, I could identify, where I would fit in. So it was probably around, midway through high school that I realized that I might need to change direction here and look at some other ways that I could help people. So I started volunteering, started doing more in my community. My school was really active. I was part of a couple of clubs, and I really enjoyed that. And I really enjoyed meeting new people and engaging, with my community and my peers, also in a team building aspect. So I said, maybe there's something here. So that's when I decided to try some new things.
Okay, so you are about to graduate high school. What do you see as the next step for you? Are you thinking I need to get a job? Are you thinking I need to go to college? Like, what does that senior year look like for you?
So that year started, I definitely had applied to college and realized I wanted to go away. I wanted to kind of just get a different experience and get out of New York. So I, went to college in Virginia, went to Virginia Union University. It's a wonderful experience for me to just get away from home and, kind of get a taste of what life was like. And there, is when I started my journey. So I had an interest also in political science, just kind of government affairs, and, had dabbled a little bit in trying to understand law and legislation and why things are created in certain areas versus others, if you will. So in college is when I started to, get a little deeper into understanding what those various human services could look like, and how, government and local and state legislation impacts those types of communities and the funding that's involved and so on. So I graduated, and my first job was at a nonprofit organization. I got to work for the Child Care Action Campaign, and they were advocacy group to help get better child care for children in disadvantaged communities. So I got to work with Scholastic and America Cares, and that's how I started to kind of get more familiar with philanthropic orgs.
Was that out in Virginia, or where was?
No, here in New York. Yeah,
in New York. Okay, so you came back home. Okay.
Yeah, came back home and started to do that, and developed a real love for it, and a passion again to help make those connections for people.
That makes sense, and it seems like a natural progression, right? People always kind of thought about helping people to start your journey in the nonprofit space, and interestingly, right, it kind of is where you are right now, it is kind of a full circle, right? Because you are still working in cohort with community, working directly with disadvantaged communities specifically, and making the connections with the nonprofits and being kind of that person that is the liaison, right? But you've been on the other side of that as well.
Right. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Okay, so tell me what happens from there. So you stay in this nonprofit world for some time.
Hmm.
Then what gets you out of that?
So, I loved it already, but quite frankly, I wasn't really making a lot of money. Still living at home, and definitely kind of looking to, expand both my wallet, but also, move out, right? I had started taking just a couple of, just little classes, trying to just build up my own expertise. So I took class in fundraising. I spent a lot of time at the Foundation Center, understanding how, grant proposals were assembled, and started dabbling a little bit in marketing, and wanted to kind of give that a try to better understand, how projects are formulated, how, opportunities are created for some of these small businesses and organizations to get involved. So I started to dabble a little bit more in marketing, left the nonprofit world. I actually went to a larger nonprofit actually called Catalyst. And that was a wonderful experience because Catalyst is an organization that's focused on women in business. So they, their whole goal is how to, again, create more opportunities for women, especially women of color, to, create, whether it's board seats or getting these companies more involved with corporate initiatives. So that was great. And that was like a nonprofit that really operated like a corporate entity, a for-profit center. From there, I catapulted into another kind of marketing role. And then I found my way into construction totally by accident. I was a temp, was kind of feeling around some things, and ended up temping at Turner. And it was just a very happy accident because here I am so many years later doing what I'm doing. But I got there and was initially supporting the international division. So I got to work on projects, very exciting projects in Africa and in Asia and in the Middle East. And that's when I kind of was like, wait a minute, there could be something here in construction. So full circle, with my family, here I am. Yeah.
Was that more of like a project management, or what type of role was that, right? Like you weren't directly working with community at this point, right?
No. So this was more like operations. So our operations teams, in these various countries, obviously they are like little business units on their own. So my role was, it was an administrative operations role to help get those teams ramped up, making sure they had, following all the same protocol that we do here in the US. And a very small part of that was some community outreach, right? Some community engagement, some mentoring, some form of making an impact in those communities across the world that we were working in. So while still dabbling a little bit in marketing, and again with proposals, I began in my operations role to identify, how does a building and a construction team leave a positive impact where we build, wherever we build.
So you're basically coming into your career at this point, right? You're out of school for a while, but you're kind of, it sounds like you're at this point now starting to mold what the next few years of your career are actually going to look like. Did you have an ideal role in mind at that? Do you remember having like a North Star of like, oh, I definitely want to continue to work in construction, but I want to be like the CEO of Turner or the head of marketing at Turner or the head of communications? Or was there any aspirational goal around that time in your life that you wanted to work towards, or did you just feel good about being in the industry?
I felt good about being in the industry. And honestly, I was still learning so much, and there was so much, there still is so much to learn. And because Turner, is such a large company, I hadn't really identified that yet. But working at Turner, again, because Turner has always had a community and citizenship department. In New York, I started to do more volunteering with our community and citizenship team. So that was kind of how I got introduced to it. And, I kind of started to think about, well, maybe this is something I could pursue. And again, there are not many, construction companies that are, putting this at the forefront. So to see that, Turner had this kind of commitment, I kind of asked myself, well, this is interesting. interesting. Maybe there's something there. So while that was very much, my own interest, my own volunteer time, there wasn't exactly like a job, right, available that I could apply for. I was just kind of volunteering and helping out and seeing what I, could contribute and learn, since I was working for a company that clearly thought it was a priority.
That makes sense. Okay, so you're doing this quick, started out as a temporary role. How long did you actually last at Turner during that first stint? And then what happens next?
Yeah, so I was there for about 2 years, almost three, and then the recession hit of '08. Turner, by all means, did their very best to keep so many people on board. And I actually made the decision to leave and pursue some other opportunities. Because again, I still had one foot in marketing, and I kind of was like seeing how maybe I could do more in there, because I love being creative. I loved working on business development pursuits and proposals. So I left Turner in '08, and I went to Thornton Tomasetti. I worked there for a little while. Just now, that was a straight like marketing, role. And I got to tell you, Radhy, it was tough, and kind of be careful what you wish for, because it was really long hours. It was a lot of weekends. And while the work, was fulfilling in the sense that you're a part of putting together something to help, the company sell and get business, it was very much like you were sort of had the brunt of the work of putting together these packages. So you often had to rely on so many different entities and people to make it happen. And while you contributed to it creatively, maybe and visually, there wasn't much writing for me to do. There wasn't much, that I was doing on that end, more so than just pulling together these packages. So, I started to get a little burned out. I did that at Thornton Tomasetti for a little while. Then I went on to ACOM, which at the time was acquiring a lot of companies. They were massive, kind of lost my way a little bit, and kind of got a little, I don't know, lost a little interest in the marketing pursuits, and it was getting kind of boring to me. And I said, you know what, I still was doing my volunteering, still helping communities. I said, maybe I should be going back to that. And so I found an opportunity. I'd still been in touch with all of my, friends at Turner, and still, had great relationships with them there. And they actually had helped refer me to McKissick and McKissick, where I ended up working, and where you and I met. And that was a great opportunity, again, to get back to supporting small businesses, getting back to community relations, getting back to working closely again in the construction industry, but back to that kind of volunteerism and support that I was initially kind of sparked on my first go around at Turner. So I ended up at McKissick, and and there it went.
Let's talk about your time at McKissick. What was your actual role there, and can you speak a little bit about the role McKissick played in the project that you and I connected, and just an overview of kind of what that was?
Yes, McKissick was in a joint venture with our construction manager and Lend-Lease at the time, and we provided construction management, project management services on the first phase of the Columbia Manhattanville project. And I was brought on because, obviously Columbia is very committed to MWB utilization and community engagement. And I was brought on to help the team in, monitoring, managing, identifying those opportunities for our team. So it was a great opportunity to work in Harlem. The university has expanded so much since then, Radhy, and it was great to be a part of it in the beginning. I learned so much from both my Lend-Lease colleagues, McKissick colleagues, and of course, working closely with the university. And I built strong relationships, which was my first lesson in understanding how you're effective in, quite frankly, everything you do, right?
Yeah.
Building those relationships with both organizations and individuals, and creating that network was really one of the best takeaways for me during my time there.
That makes sense. So because we're talking about a specific project, and, this is a multi-billion-dollar, multi-decade expansion in Harlem, right? The university committed to doing a lot of things, and I think you all were integral in making sure that it followed up on a lot of those, and making sure that we were hiring minority women local firms, providing job opportunities for people in the community, and a bunch of other things, right? So I was on the other side of it, in the Columbia side, just making sure that all the pieces kind of came together, and that you all were doing your part, Lend-Lease was doing their part, Columbia was doing their part, right? And following up on our
Hmm.
community benefits agreement as well. And, I was fortunate enough to have some really great leadership at the time that
Yeah.
also allowed me to just kind of learn from different spaces and dive into different spaces that I had never worked on before, like
Yeah.
construction, and like program management and things. So, I think that was a really integral part. Are there any other projects throughout your career that come to mind that you feel really proud about your involvement? It could be during your time at Turner or any other one that you're like, you know what, we did some good work.
Yeah, there've been a couple, right? I've had the honor of saying my biggest project since Columbia has to be the Jacob Javits expansion,
Mm-hmm.
and why that particularly was a great experience for me because I ended up working with Lend-Lease again. Again, these happy accidents when you may not follow the direct path that you think you're going to take, but you just never know what's down the road for you. So having spent my time at McKissick, I again had my friends at Turner reached out and they said, "Hey, we just won this huge job. We're in a joint venture, and again, it has the same MWB community engagement and workforce initiatives, and we really need someone to help us, run this program." And it was so funny because at the time I didn't know who the JV partner was, and I walk in the room, I accepted the position, and walk in the room, and here it is, all my colleagues and friends from Lend-Lease are
Right.
there, and it was wonderful because again, I developed great relationships with management there. They were super supportive. So it was great because that was when I felt like I found my niche. I was confident in what I was doing. I had, built up some expertise and knowledge in terms of, legislation and certification and how procurement works and things like that. And now they have the opportunity to work at Turner again with Lend-Lease. It was like, hey, we got the band back together,
I
right?
love it.
It was great, and we did some incredible things there, obviously, through COVID. And we're very proud of, everything we did to create those opportunities for small businesses to work on the Javits expansion. So that was really, really a
Mm.
wonderful opportunity for me. I also did a little project in Brooklyn, the Squibb pedestrian bridge. And again, it was a little project, but it was so important to the community to have this bridge which extends to the park at the pier. But there was no like safe access for pedestrians to walk. So to be able to Turner, was invited to, build that, and they wanted to have a community impact. It was a small project. It wasn't that massive, but again, we provided opportunities for small businesses. I remember one got an electrical firm, got the opportunity to help, put up some of the lighting on the bridge. We got a small carpentry firm to work with our lumber providers. So then again, it was a smaller project, much more fast paced, and I got an opportunity to work on that. And then last but certainly not least is Turner School. Turner School of Construction Management is a 50-plus-year-old program that Turner has been running, and I've had the pleasure of managing this program for the last couple of years. We do it once or twice a year in various boroughs across the city. It's a free program, 6-week sort of training program that we offer to MWB businesses, and I've been proud to see so many of the companies that I've worked with in Turner School now growing and emerging, into new opportunities. So those are just three, highlights of many of the wonderful things I've had a chance to be a part of.
In your time now, you're coming up on 7 years now back at Turner, right? Help me understand what your portfolio looks like. Is it designed by geography, by expertise? What does that look like?
A little of both because of the nature of, our contractual requirements. Sometimes my expertise in monitoring and managing MWB utilization is required. There's a great deal of reporting that needs to be done. There's a great deal of management and understanding that we have to work with our trade partners on identifying those opportunities and then making sure they are fulfilled. So it could be a project that I'm brought in on, or it could be a geography. Turner has had the opportunity now to start working on the soccer stadium in Queens. We've done a couple of Turner schools in Queens. I've worked very closely with the Chamber of Commerce in Queens, some other local-based organizations, our borough president's office. So again, geography-wise, because we have a client that is very important to them, that they make a positive impact for that local community, I'm brought into that, to offer my guidance and support to the team on how we best make that impact, whether it be working with kids or local organizations clients, or again, identifying local companies that can work on the project. And now I'm spending more time in Buffalo, helping our Buffalo Bills a new stadium team. And again, doing a lot of those same things. This is a big deal for the Erie County community. And, we have to make sure that we do all the right things by creating that access for them to have a part in this great new stadium in Buffalo.
Absolutely. And for the state of New York, right? Like these are really big projects that you're a part of, and must be pretty rewarding to be able to drive down the highway and point at different things and say, you know what? I was a piece of that. I was a part of that. And like, that's, I know I certainly do it when I go around the city in different projects, and I'm not even on the construction side of things. Right. And I'm just like, that was great.
Yeah. And it's also great to, know that, there's a park that we cleaned up. There's an organization that we worked with to help them. There are people in that community that will think positively about Turner. When they see that building, the end user or client will be happy with what we provided for them. That also means a lot to me, that, we've left the community better than we found it, because it's not about a requirement already, it's really our responsibility. So that is really, what warms my heart, to know that we helped the people, the local people, the residents, the businesses, and making things better for them as well.
What's the favorite part of your role?
Ooh, that's hard, Radhy. I think, when I get to partner with an organization that has been working hard in a community that just needed an opportunity to get in somehow, that, just needed an opportunity to make a connection, and that we were able to help that organization with its mission and goal, whatever it might be, that Turner leveraged our project to help that organization's members or its constituents in either learning more about our industry, gaining access to it, or again, providing them with an opportunity. Also, because I started with kids, we started this conversation about me wanting to be a pediatrician, working with kids, with young people, with people that look like me, who didn't know, when they were a kid, like I knew. Like I didn't know that there are opportunities for you in this industry, and the trades. This is great, careers, and we need more people, right? To be plumbers, to be electricians, to be dock builders, and there is great opportunity here for those who are really looking for a career, right, in our industry. So to be able to have the opportunity to share that, like you and I are talking today, to put my tradeswomen in front of young girls and see their eyes, just sparkle. I work with a group called Tools and Tiaras. It's a wonderful organization that exposes young girls and tells them jobs have no gender. You can do anything you want with your hands. So to be able to provide that conduit for young people to see and come to our sites and meet our people and talk to them and maybe spark an interest or change someone's life is an incredible privilege for me.
I love that. And, and a lot of these are careers that really provide a good living for you and your family, right? And these are just paths that folks in our communities just weren't exposed to too much, right? But I think that is growing, and I love that you're part of supporting some of these programs that are really broadening that reach and certainly breaking down some barriers for folks. So that's remarkable. Yeah. As part of that, I also, I think your job sounds really rewarding, and it sounds like you can have a good amount of impact in your role. I know you and I have spoken about this before, but I'm pretty big on, you don't have to sacrifice having impact to then be broke all your life, right? Like when you started your career, you're like, I'm at a nonprofit, so I need to make more money at some point, right? Would it be helpful for people listening to understand generally a range of how much someone could expect to make in this type of career that you have now?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say the construction industry, is one that is, very beneficial, right? In terms of, the salary ranges, I think even, those who start out in our industry, whether it be engineering or project management, you make a decent wage. I think when you get to this level, you can earn a salary anywhere between, $80,000 and $150,000, depending on, your skill set, depending on your expertise. I don't have a master's degree, Radhy. I have my bachelor's, I have a couple of certifications, but it's really that experience, your character, your personality, but your passion that really can drive that. And our, industry, while there are, many who are well educated and have multiple letters behind their names, I think, as you develop that experience, that expertise, that confidence in what you do, you can command a very, very good wage for yourself in the space.
That makes sense. And I'm sure it also, continues to expand and grow, because I'm sure for you, right, like folks lean on you internally for relationships, right? Like you have relationships with contractors, with community, with other things. And because of that, you're able to grow and be part of different projects or different opportunities by virtue of your utility and by virtue of your experience and expertise in different fields. So I appreciate you sharing that. In that way. Are there any forms of media, it could be books, movies, TV shows, podcasts, whatever, that you have heard, listened to, read, watched that have shaped you personally or professionally?
Wow, I was thinking about this one. Well, one, I'd like to just mention that I've had the honor of having wonderful mentors in my life. I'm a part of the ACE mentor program, which is something I truly love. It's very close to my heart. My mentor, his name is John Pierce. One of my mentors, he is the executive director of that program. And I've had the opportunity to participate as a representative of Turner, just helping mentor young kids. So joining an organization with a passion that you have to give back and make a difference is something that I just can't say enough about, because I've had the honor to pay it forward. So I've had great mentors that provide me with that guidance and, instruction and direction and support. I really, really love, listening to radio shows and podcasts. NPR is absolutely one of my favorite. I'll occasionally listen to a couple of TED Talks on various projects. Believe it or not, I really love CBS Sunday Morning, with Jay Pauley, comes on the weekends. And it's a great show. Sometimes news can be a little overwhelming and depressing, but I find that sometimes those kind of programs are uplifting and also educational. I enjoy that. A couple of great books that I've read I can think of is What Got You Here Won't Get You There, and that's by Marshall Goldsmith. And that's a great book to understand, again, your career progression and the things you need to do, how you need to see yourself where you want to be. Another great book that Turner, in addition to all the good programs Turner offers us as employees, they're very big on training and providing us with classes and resources to better ourselves in our careers. So last year, the company embarked on a couple month long training initiative for all levels of employees. And we read this book called Multipliers, and that's by Liz Wiseman. And Multipliers is about how leaders become better leaders, right? And how you make everyone smarter through not being a diminisher, but being a multiplier. So that was an excellent book. And then I had the pleasure a couple months ago of attending a small business outreach event in Westchester, and I met the lovely Carla Harris. And she's a wonderful executive and over at Morgan Stanley, and she wrote a book called Lead to Win, which was a great read for me. Again, a great book helping you understand how to become a better leader, because I think we're all leaders, but that was a great kind of read on helping to understand what your priorities are, how to set them, how to communicate, and how to, share those impactful initiatives that you may want to implement, how to move things forward.
Any advice that you would give to Janice working at a small nonprofit in New York, coming, younger in her career, that you're like, you know what, I would love to go back and tell myself this? Not
to be afraid, to be a little vulnerable, not to be afraid to speak up for myself more. I think back then I kind of, I kept my head down. I was young. I knew I had a lot to learn. There were a lot of people, more experienced and older around me. And I'm the baby in my family as well. So I naturally kind of take a little, quiet, position, and then I should be listening and learning. And while I always want to do that, and I always want to be a good listener and learner, I think back then I could have spoken up a little bit more for myself. myself, maybe expressed my interest a little bit more. And I remember when I first had the courage to do it was at, I can't even remember, was at an event, and a panelist just blew me away. And I went up to her and I just asked her a couple questions. And next thing you know, we connected, we became good friends. And she was a great, great mentor to me back then as well. But it took me some time to build up the courage to, speak out and speak up for myself and not be afraid to let people know that, hey, I don't really know what I want to do, but I like this, or I like that, or I don't like this, I don't like that. What do you think? It took me a little while to get there. I wish I'd done that sooner, but I'm glad I did it when I did.
Is there anything we haven't discussed today that the world should know about Janice?
I love my family. I have 2 beautiful little fur babies and a wonderful, super supportive and loving husband. His name is Christian, whom I can't do any of this without. And it's just important, Radhy, that we all have some type of support system around us. A lot of this work, while I love it and I'm passionate about it, sometimes it can be challenging. And sometimes you bring things home, especially when you have to face issues in inequity, issues in lack of diversity. Sometimes you have to have tough conversations. And in the end, you're hopeful for the best, but you have to have a great support system and a release around you. I love to cook. I love to take pictures. I love to write. So, making sure and travel. I'm getting ready to take a big trip. So you must have those outlets to be able to renew and rejuvenate yourself, and also, loved ones and family and friends around you that can sometimes take you away from this, which we all need, but also those people that love and support you and will encourage you when you need a little boost, when you need a little uplifting, when you need a little atta girl, right? You need people to clap for you, Radhy.
I love that. That's great. Okay. I think that's all we have for today. So thank you for joining the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Radhy, for having me. It was great talking to you today.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did and believe on the mission we're on, please like, rate, and subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you're using, and share this podcast with your friends in your networks. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Career Cheat Code, and tell us people or careers you would like to see highlighted. See you next week with some more cheat codes. Peace.